Welcome to this information video for Year 12 students and parents. My name is Miss Rafferty, Head of Sixth Form at Northwood School. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we hope you find it useful. It has been a pleasure to welcome back so many Year 11 students and also to welcome a number of new students to our school community and to our Sixth Form. I'm pleased to say that students have transitioned very well into Sixth Form and seem to be enjoying Sixth Form life so far, as you can see from some of the video pictures on screen. Our role as a Sixth Form team is to ensure that students are supported academically, pastorally and aspirationally. And we have explained this to students, and it's about making sure that their 2 years with us is as successful and enjoyable as possible. When we met with the students at the start of September, we made sure that we outlined our very high expectations that we have, and these are not dissimilar to what we do in the lower school. As well as being a Sixth Form community, we make sure that we are role models for the whole school. Northwood students across the school hold our recipe values: resilience, engagement, cooperation, independence, pride and enthusiasm. And this doesn't change even though the students are older and in Key Stage 5. We also ask our students to make sure that every day they have high expectations in what they do, making sure they attend as much as possible and aiming for 100% attendance, are punctual every day to school but also to their lessons as well, have fantastic uniform and present themselves in a professional manner, have a very independent and strong work ethic, they're able to take responsibility for themselves and the work that they do, to be caring young individuals for those in their community but also for our wider school community, and also to ensure that they are fantastic role models for our younger students. We as a team ensure that we try to support this in the background in terms of our academic provision. Students are able to every single day engage with high quality lessons with very supportive teachers and a thorough curriculum. And we regularly hold conversations with students about their progress and their subject choices, and have already started doing so far this term. They also have quite a lot of resources for learning, including their own designated space in the school, as well as having resources in our library and also online resources and platforms that they can use for each of their subject areas. Pastorally, we have a very experienced team of tutors. We have our specific Sixth Form team that work with students only for Sixth Form, including myself and some of the other members of the team I'll introduce you to later. We also have additional services that will help students in terms of their mental health and well-being as they transition to adulthood. We also work particularly with aspirational planning and giving students aspirational support. So supporting students with work experience, career support and advice, UCAS support, so that's when students apply to university, but also trying to provide as many enrichment opportunities so that our students are rounded young individuals and not just having academic success, but to make sure that they go into the world as well-rounded young individuals. In August, we were pleased to celebrate some wonderful successes for our Year 13 leavers who have had their 2 years at Northwood Sixth Form. As you can see on the screen, we were able to celebrate some fantastic A-level results, achieving many A and A stars, but also we can see some of the destinations of where some of our students have actually gone to and have started or are starting in the coming weeks, with a range of different universities, as you can see on screen, but also, more excitingly, a wide range of courses that our students have decided to engage with there, plus many more, as you can see. And it's about trying to share this vision now with you as parents and students so that you can start thinking about where that 2-year journey is going to come through for you. In order to be successful, we do have to have rules and routines, and as we've outlined, clear expectations of what we expect of our students. So I'm going to talk through those in a little bit more detail now in this part of the video. As we said, attendance is really important. In order for students to really engage with the opportunities we can provide for them, not only in their learning but wider across the school too, students need to be in school all day, every day, and school starts at 8:30. Punctuality, as we've said, is really important to make sure that students aren't missing out on those opportunities, but also that they're being responsible and professional in the way they conduct themselves, being quite simply being in the right place at the right time. We do have a thing called office hours, where sometimes if students fail to either attend or be punctual or don't meet the expectations we have for them in school, for example with homework, we will invite students behind after school for an hour by either myself, a member of the Sixth Form team, or their classroom teacher, where if there are issues, they will try to be modified and rectified. And it's really an opportunity for students to catch up on anything that's not quite working. And if we feel that this doesn't get any better, we will invite parents in for meetings. This does seem quite strict, and I'm sorry to bring it up earlier on in the video, but it's really important that we make sure that students have that structure and support, and they understand actually that we will follow through with things if students don't do as we expect of them in sixth form. In terms of uniform, the uniform policy is online, so you can look through this in further detail. And by and large, our Year 12 students have made a really good start, and they look very, very smart in coming to school each day. For boys, it's pretty straightforward: shirts, tailored trousers. They need to also wear a tie as well, and smart leather shoes, so no trainers or boots, etc. For girls, it's quite similar: a blouse, shirt, or smart top, tailored trousers, or a knee-length skirt or dress. And I must emphasise, it does need to be knee-length. To make sure that we're dressed appropriately. And again, appropriate shoes to be worn around school. Students can wear a jacket or a blazer or a cardigan or jumper without logos if they so wish to. We do have some particular banned items, including hoodies, denim jackets, t-shirts, etc. and just making sure that our students do look professional. Our uniform policy was decided by our students, so we make sure that we adhere to that so it's consistent across the board. And it is a professional environment we have here. Students choose not to have a uniform, but they did choose to have certain regulations in terms of actually how we presented ourselves. And it's really important that students do that. As a sixth form team, we don't like to have conversations about uniform because we'd rather be talking about academic progress, aspirational planning, or pastoral support. So if we can ask parents at home to support with this and make sure that students are adhering to the uniform policy, that would be greatly appreciated. Alongside this, it's really important that sixth formers are well equipped. We've spoken to sixth formers, and Year 12 are quite clear of what the expectations are for these. So for every subject, students will need to have at least one folder per subject. This may be an Arch Lever file or multiple folders, and specific subjects may give further guidance on what that is. They will need to have line paper so they can make notes, and that's one of the big adjustments that they'll have this year, is that they're making a lot of notes and will not necessarily working through via exercise books. They will need to have subject dividers and make sure that their folders are thoroughly organised. And my advice is for students to file as they go, because we will at different points have spot checks on folders for students. They need to make sure they have all their equipment and pencil cases, also calculators. So this is generally dependent in subjects such as maths, physics, the sciences, geography, etc. We also encourage students to have mini whiteboards, because these can often be used in quite a few subjects as well. Get your son or daughter to do check which subjects do tend to use these, and to have a water bottle and folder so they can make sure they water bottle and lunch if they so wish to, so they can keep themselves hydrated and sorted out throughout the day. But as I emphasise down at the bottom here, it's really important that students need to keep their folders and work organised. If they wish to bring in a device, they can do so, and they will need to sign a form to say that they're bringing it underneath and it's under their own jurisdiction that they bring in their devices to school if they wish to use them. But we do have plenty of Chromebooks on site for sixth formers to use at any point, and I'll talk more about that later. In terms of the sixth form provision in a curriculum, your son or daughter has probably chosen either 3 or 4 subjects, and that's generally what students tend to take at A level. And by and large, this can consist for each subject about 7 to 9 hours of lessons per subject per fortnight. So you'll notice that doesn't fill up a full 50 hour or 50 lesson timetable across a fortnight. But I'll explain how that additional time is used in a moment. Most subjects students will have 2 teachers, sometimes 3, because there's quite a lot of different content in the course that they'll have for each of their subjects, and they're each subject specialists in that regard. Many of our students do 3 subjects, some will do 4, and many of our students have started with 4 since the start of September. But they may decide to drop down 1 after the initial assessments, which are happening in the coming weeks. And it's important for their students to come and have conversations if they feel like they need to change their subject choices. And by and large, it's mainly with students dropping subjects rather than flitting between, because we are further into the course already. When students aren't in lessons for those additional hours I referred to earlier, students will be timetabled to have study periods where they will work in the study room to complete independent work. This includes homework, revision, or just independent research which they may need to do for their specific subjects. The general rule of thumb that we talk to our staff about is that for every hour lesson that a student has, they should have at least 1 hour of homework and 1 hour of independent study. The 1 hour of homework will be directed and be shared on Show My Homework, like they used in the lower school, and also Google Classroom as a resource base to put all the resources on there. But also there may be 1 hour of independent study, which will not always necessarily be directed by the classroom teacher. And that's where students need to start getting organised and taking ownership of their learning, seeing if they need to do extra revision, Can they consolidate their notes? Is there any extra work that they can actually do just to make sure that they are keeping on top of things? Because the pace and the volume of work does increase when we get to A level. So it's really important that students keep on top of this regularly, because things won't necessarily be revised in the same level that they were at GCSE. Students have their very own common room in sixth form, and it's their place where they can come to and relax. And it's a brand new sixth form centre that opened in 2019, and it's a fantastic area where the students come to each day. It's where they come at the start of the school day to unwind and debrief, and also spend their break times and lunch times. But they can also use this as a working space or a place to have social activities outside of school hours as well. Students also have their own designated study room, and this is where students spend all of their study periods, and they are registered, and that is considered a working classroom where students are to complete their work as they need to. No phones are to be used there, but as you can see, students are able to access Chromebooks throughout the day should they need to access any online materials, and there are plenty for all our sixth form students. The school day for Year 12 looks like so, with lessons being 1 hour long. Occasionally students may be timetabled for a period 6 lesson or an office hour, but generally, by and large, the day starts at 8:30 and finishes at 2:40 for most of the school, and occasionally 3:45 if a student needs to stay after school. I'd like to now talk you through a little bit more of the longer journey and some of the things that we're doing with students to make sure that they are as engaged and enriched over the next 2 years. And this is the sixth form timeline that I'd like to talk to parents and students about. As expected, at the end of Year 13, students will sit exams, and we can see there at the top of the screen we're thinking about where the next steps may be, maybe going to the world of work or going off to university. But along the way, we can see we're down at the bottom here at the start of Year 12. And yes, students will have exams at the end of Year 12 just to indicate how they're getting on, so we can best prepare them for Year 13. In this term, as you can see on the left-hand side here, we're working towards work experience, and we'd like all students to complete at least 1 week of meaningful work experience at some point, ideally this term or within the next term and a half. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. Around this time next year, your son or daughter, if they are going through UCAS and the university application process, will be submitting their UCAS, and our current Year 13s have already started doing that. So the time can move quite quickly, and it will come around quicker than we expect. Throughout all of Year 12, we ask students to complete a Northwood Diploma. And this is an extra enrichment opportunity that we ask all our students to do and get involved in. And it's quite unique to our sixth form and a real unique selling point, where students build up a portfolio of extracurricular and developmental opportunities outside of their academic learning. So when they come to submitting their UCAS applications, they have a really thorough personal statement and lots of things to talk about. And in the second half of this year, we will be getting the students then, once they've completed their diploma, to build on that UCAS preparation, so that when they get to this time next year in Year 13, they can submit their UCAS applications with full knowledge and understanding of what they need to do and be as prepared as possible. And on the back of that, throughout the journey, at different points, we make sure that we are supporting from the academic, the aspirational, the pastoral, and in terms of their planning and the provisions that we put through in different activities through form time, PSHE, after school events, to make sure students have got those opportunities when needed. So as we talked about earlier, we do expect all students to complete at least 1 week or 5 days of meaningful work experience. This could be 1 week long placement or spread out over separate days. It will need to take place outside of school term, so ideally during October half term or February half term. This could take place elsewhere if it's more suitable. And we really ask students to complete their work experience and submit their form by the end of March. So please, as a parent, if there's any contacts that you may have or any people that you may know that your son or daughter might be able to tap into, please do support your son or daughter along with that and trying to find those work experience placements, because they can be quite competitive. And we are also still allowing for students to complete remote or virtual work experience opportunities. So there are quite a lot out there. And despite the past 18 months and the fact that things have been restrictive, we found that actually all our Year 12s last year were able to engage with some sort of work experience. So it is possible to do so, but hopefully now we can have those a little bit more in person where possible. And it's really about students thinking about what's really useful to them that might be something they can talk about when it comes to applications, CVs, or university applications that they're going to put in. Something that's really meaningful for them and where they'd like to go. The Northwood Sixth Form Diploma, as I mentioned earlier, is a very unique selling point to our sixth form. It is a portfolio that students work on throughout Year 12 and have actually started for many of them before the summer when they came in for the induction period back in July. And it has three main strands that we get students to focus on. So one is community service, about how they give back to our local community, whether that be as a school or actually to the sort of more local community of Northwood and our surrounding area, and how they can get involved. And already quite a number of our Year 12s are taking up projects within their free time to make sure that they're giving back to our school. The second thread is intellectual curiosity. So we encourage students actively to engage with their learning, but outside of their classroom curriculum. So getting involved with wider reading, maybe taking part in a Brilliant Club project or EPQ, which I'll come on to talk about, or potentially doing a Future Learn course, maybe taking up coding or doing other exploratory opportunities where they can kind of get to understand their subjects or their wider learning a little bit more. Watching TED Talks, for example, is another really good example that students can get involved in. So they're just making their learning experiences all the richer. The third strand is more about the aspirational planning, as we've talked about already with the work experience, but we'll also be encouraging students to go on university trips and starting to think about actually where they may want to apply, because that will come around quite quickly. We'll also be supporting them and have already done quite a number of workshops on how to write CVs, how interview prep, how to write a cover letter, for example. And then, as we said, also supporting in the background with the university preparation. And this really helps us to keep up the students to keep up to date with what they've done, because it can be easy to forget when there's such a volume, but it also helps them start planning about what they can actually write about in their personal statement for university. We award points for the Northwood Diploma, and your son and daughter will be able to know a little bit more about this, but this is just an oversight or an example of how we allocate points for the different levels of engagement that students may use for each of the three threads: intellectual curiosity, community service, or work experience and career prep. And we make this quite competitive for students to make sure they can accumulate as many different points as possible. And this means that they can actually, as we said, keep tabs on what they're doing, but also think about where their gaps may be, and actually is there something that they need to supplement? Maybe they aren't getting as involved in their intellectual curiosity as possible. So is there something that they can tap into? And we will have those conversations with their form tutors and the students, so that they can make sure that they're really trying to engage with this as fully as possible. And this just means that it leaves them in the best opportunity at this time next year when they're putting those applications through, but also when they're going for interview, they have actually got something to talk about. Some of the extracurricular opportunities that we do offer in sixth form are things like the Brilliant Club, which a number of Year 12 have already been part of, and fantastically 15 of them have already been selected for that. And I was really delighted with the number of students that put their names forward for that. It's where they work with a PhD student from a university on a particular project of their choice. Later on this year, we will be talking to Year 12s about the EPQ, which is the Extended Project Qualification. So again, like the Brilliant Club, it is optional. Students will apply to be part of it. And it's a self-directed project, which is actually worth half an A level in terms of UCAS points. And that will be taking place starting in January and running through the full year. So from the second half of Year 12 into the beginning of Year 13. So I know quite a few of our students are thinking about that. And do direct conversations with your son or daughter about whether they may be interested. And later on, some of our Year 12s will be trained and supported to deliver some sessions on what we call PEP, which is our peer education project, where students work with younger years to support mental health and develop presentation and leadership skills along the way. There will be other opportunities with trips that will come through in subjects, but also university visits. And as we said, we have quite a few webinars and extra careers provisions that we've already put through that all sixth form students have got, but on screen are some optional bits and pieces. So this just begins to give you a bit of a flavour of what we do and what's quite unique to sixth form. And it is quite fast paced. And we really do actively ask, parents to be active in talking to students about how they're finding things. And, yes, we do want them to be independent, but to share in what their learning journey has been like so far, and to share in the positivity and successes of what has happened already. So from a parent and carer perspective, what can I do as sixth form? Because I have lots of conversations with parents saying, what can I do to support my son or daughter? Because I feel like I'm a bit disconnected. They're getting a little bit more grown up. And what is it that I need to do to really make sure that they are successful over the next 2 years? Firstly, try and keep up to date with information. So even watching this video this evening or whenever you are accessing this video is really important. And contact us if you do have any questions along the way. We do send out emails and letters quite regularly with key information, but do make sure you use that and our school website to see what is going on that is sixth form relevant. Please try to support your child with their work. Encourage them to take ownership of their learning, and that's the real step up, and that's the real transition to A level, where students really need to not be told what to do, but to actually have that self-motivation and that discipline to make sure that they are keeping on top of things. So please do talk to them about how their studies are going. And as we said, communicate with us if there are any concerns or questions along the way, because we really want to work with you as parents and really, appreciate your support that you've given us already. And please do there's never too early to start talking about where the destination's going and thinking about where they may be in 2 years' time. And that's not saying that we want to get rid of them straight away, but it's just to make sure that they really are thinking about that, where their end goal is, so that they can be successful and start planning for that sooner rather than later. So as we said, please do use the school website, because there is lots of information and further detail about some of the things I've spoken about on this video, such as UCAS and parent guides to apprenticeships. And we will give more information about UCAS later on this year. So we will have a similar session for parents so we can go through that when the time is right. Students, we have our own Google Classroom. We tend to give a lot of notices day to day or week to week about certain opportunities that we do get shared to us as a school. So do, again, ask your son or daughter how often are they checking it. We do put up when there is a work experience placement or a guest set of lectures coming up. And it's really important that students make sure they're checking that, because we won't nag them, because there's such a volume of things that they need to try and do. But there'll be different events, as you can see there, opportunities to develop their Northwood diploma and other enrichment opportunities. So a lot of it is online, and it's just about where you can tap in and access to those. So it's something that needs to happen quite regularly. As we've already said, it's really important that we have parental support. And if you are interested in being a parent ambassador for our school, and I know some of you may have been when your son or daughter was lower down in the school or already are one, but if you would like to be interested, please do let us know. And we are looking for some sixth form parents who might be able to help work with us, where we meet once a term or once every half term to get some feedback about how we're operating as a school. And it would be quite a useful thing to have a member from the sixth form community to see how we are getting on and actually get some real feedback and voice experience about actually how you as a parent and how your child is finding things. So do get in contact with us if you would be happy to be part of that. So the final bit from me is just about who to contact when. So on screen you can see the main people that are involved in our sixth form community, but that obviously extends beyond to your son or daughter's subject teachers for each of their different subjects. So please do contact if there are any subject specific queries, or get your son or daughter to get in contact with them. But from a more sort of cohesive point of view, these are the people that you may want to contact elsewhere. So do get in contact with your son or daughter's form tutor. So that for year 12 is Mr. Kavanagh or Mr. Till, and they can support in terms of, general organisation, pastoral support, and just some general sixth form guidance about how they're getting on. So if you do have any concerns about how they're settling in or what the transition's looking like, they're the people you can contact. Or year 12s can also contact them first, and they see them every morning. So they're going to be someone that gets to build up a real relationship and already have done so. Second person is Ms. Thacker, and she's the person who supervises our study room every single day. So again, we'll get to know, or has got to know, our year 12s particularly well. And she makes sure that students are really using that time productively. So if there are any concerns about attendance or organisation or work ethic, she is your next port of call. Mrs. Bamborough, she is our sixth form administrator, but she also does a lot of work around careers and work experience, and also supports with the UCAS process too. So if there are any concerns, or if you do call the sixth form office, she's the person that you'll end up speaking to. Mrs. Condell is our Deputy Head of Sixth Form, and she's someone you need to speak to in case you have any pastoral concerns, or if there are any issues in terms of attendance or any general feedback that we have for Sixth Form. So anything that you need to let us know about for your son or daughter, she's the person to speak to. And my main role, as well as obviously overseeing sixth form, I look in particular at subject choices and academic progress, and talk to individuals, students and parents about how students are actually making progress across their Key Stage 5 studies. But of course, do feel free, as we said, to get in contact with any one of us, whoever you may feel more comfortable with. And we do also encourage students to choose who they feel is the best person for them. And it's, as we've alluded to at the start, communication makes these things really easy. And part of the independence of sixth form is students actually talking about their own learning rather than it coming through a parent or rather than it coming through a teacher. It's about them taking that ownership and credentials. So we hope this information has been video has been useful. Thank you so much for taking the time for watching this. We will be following up with a Google form. So if there are any sort of initial questions that you have, just wait for that form to come through so you can email us directly, and we'll be probably sending out a document if there are any sort of shared questions and answers. But as we said, thank you so much for your support already. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for your continued support as we take this journey together over the next 2 years.